So finally, to talk about sprays, which is the last new thing we're going to do. And fortunately, it's super easy because we already did it. We did it when we did the whitewater cache, or at least the basic sprays. You could run your own secondary particle simulation if you wanted. But in any case, we'll say sprays cache. Really stretching the definition of these cache nodes here. This one because we had a solver in it, and this one we're not gonna make a new cache, but it's just kind of the convention now for this lesson. So object merge in the whitewater cache. This is these files that we want. So I'm gonna put a null after this. We'll just for the sake of propriety, whitewater cache. Bring that over here. There it is. Now, I mentioned that there are, a bunch of these attributes on here. Spray, in particular, is one. And, sometimes we get these sprays where the particles are allowed to leave the surface and live out a new purpose as spray. And the whitewater knows that. It's flickering because it's trying to find the range on the fly, like the actual range of values, because it's set to auto. If you were to do something like this and said and just kept it pegged to that. So there you go. It's hard to say which, because these particles represent everything. They represent the bubbles below the surface. They represent the foam that we turn into stuff over here. And so what qualifies as spray that leaves the surface in a way that we want to render them separately? Well, it's just kind of guesswork. I mean, I already put 0.03 in because that tends to be what I use. This is a cool angle. We should have rendered the whole lesson from this way. Oh well. So anyway, we got an idea. 0.03 or 0.01 or 0.05. Let's just isolate those particles and say spray. If spray is greater than 0.01, we'll start there. So it changes to points. So what we have is a lot of points. And it kind of looks like, the way they're moving to me, that they are kind of pretty close to the surface already. You'd think it would be like spray is 1, or spray is even greater than like 0.5. Like, oh man, these are really spray. You won't get much. You got to go pretty low to get anything. And that's because, this sim is not crazy. It's, there isn't really much reason for stuff to be flying into the air. If you had like a wave crashing on the beach, it would be different. So, but this is going to be a lot of stuff, because again, we're going to render these as points with a different shader, and I don't want like a wall of points just on the surface. The point is that they are in the air. So let's go up, and now we have like very few. And hopefully these points are moving more like, see, like this, look at that. Too bad we don't actually see that. It only happens on the first frame there. But that would be a much more active system anyway, and a river shouldn't be sending spray up all the time. Again, that's more of a crashing wave is going to send spray more. So we're going to do this. I suppose we'll do an ocean lesson later, and then maybe we'll get more into more interesting looking sprays. But this is all pretty good. I'm just going to find a frame that has a lot of it on it for our rendering purposes. So there you go. And then that's pretty much it for the geometry. I mean, we already had it, and we now called out what we want to do differently. We need to make a render thing for this. Render spray. And go get it. That's wet map. There you go. And so that'll get picked up, of course. And let's go make a material for this. We can make a principled shader. We'll call it, let's go like into the materials area. So principled shader is spray. Pretty much make it white and call it a day. That's pretty much it. It'll be kind of reflective, although it's already going to be white. They're going to be so small that the the idea is that the light is refracting everywhere through it like a diamond. And that's it. We don't want to waste our time with actual refraction calculations and stuff because they're going to be so small. Although you could put the liquid shader on it, I suppose. So render spray gets that. It definitely needs motion blur, so don't forget to do that. There you go. And that is enough to start with. Now, it's not going to work correctly. I already know it's not going to work correctly, but let's, I'm going to disable all this stuff here for a second. And on the mantra node, let's just do the spray for a second and see why it won't look very good. 5 days left to finish this lesson. Then I'm done with Houdini forever. I'm never going to buy a new license again. That's not true. So there we go. So it's too big. It's chunky. It's super big chunks. They look like rice. So what do we need to do? We will want to make them smaller. As you might guess, it's the p-scale. It has a p-scale based on the simulation. So this is the size of the particles in the simulation. So it's not wrong. It just doesn't look good, and that's all that really matters here. So all I'm going to say is just some parameter and we'll make it like 0.00. Well, let's start it by being that number that we chose from a minute ago. So that's not bad. Looking at the alpha is really more how it's going to look when we have it all together. So this is how much it'll be blended into it, is what I mean. So that's too high. This will probably be too low, because again, the alpha, it's virtually non-existent. I mean, again, these particles really should be pretty small, so it may not even be wrong. I just want to see it. I just want to have this be visible in our effect. So let's try 0.015. Pause that. Let's try 2. There we go. Still pretty much the same. Now, to actually see it in here, we can, so we had, that's what it looked like before, this is what we have here. I'm going to try to do it here in the interactive renderer. Now, in my experience, it can be hard. Yep, let's say that first. It can be hard to see, you can see how grainy it already is, and we're using our low quality settings and stuff, but for this small, super small detail, sometimes it's just good to bite the bullet and just do a regular old render just to see it. I don't mean like render the whole frame range, but just to actually, might as well focus on this area. But I mean like, you know, doing a render from here or to the disk, alternatively. So let's say, are we seeing, I'm actually going to kill this one. Oh, is this the wrong frame? That's 92. Okay. Let me do this then. Let me just jump right to that. I'm going to do a rendered frame in the mplay without the spray, and then I'll do one with it, and then we'll reconvene. All right. So here's just a sample of it without the sprays. Here it is with the 0.002 p-scale size. So it's very visible. It's not even that bad. It's not brighter than anything else, which is my concern. And here it is with 0.015. I think this is better. I want this to play second fiddle to the brightest spots of the foam. I don't want to steal the show, especially because it may only look so good. Yeah. So it's important to do this on the frame that has the most particles, so you can see that it pretty much more or less has the most particles visible. This one has even more in a cluster, but it's not in our actual rendered frame range. So I think 92 is as good as any spot to check. So I'm going to say, so here it is compared to no spray, spray, no spray. So it's just a little bit of extra sometimes as just a nice little extra subtle detail. And especially when we have a higher resolution of the render, they'll show up a little bit more too. But that, to the point is, that was the last size I tried, so 0.0015 I think is good for this resolution. Now, as I've said many times about the simulation stuff in general, when we go to the higher res sim, meaning the lower particle separation on our main liquid sim, it's going to change kind of everything. It might have higher vorticity values, which might make more whitewater, and that more whitewater might make more spray, and then they'll all bunch up and they'll get brighter in that spot. So we will probably have to tweak some things, and by we I mean I'll probably just do it offline, or when I'm not rendering or recording. The point is that if you do go to the 128 gigabyte high res thing, we'll probably have to do more of that. In any case, for now, I'm happy with our business here. So let's do one final render at this resolution, because again, I imagine most of you will not be taking it any farther than this. So I'm going to say super high quality shack render. This is a shack render. So over back in the mantra thing, let's just turn some stuff up. Minimum ray samples can go back to the default of 9. Even the high quality one, I didn't want it to be so high quality. Stochastic samples can probably still stay down. No, I'll bring it up, because both the whitewater and the interior uniform volume stuff is suffering from that not being up right now. So that should be fine. If you wanted to really go super high quality, you could put these up. Every tick up you do on this, you don't need to double it. You don't need to go to 6 and 6. Although, hey, 6 and 6 would look great. But you could tick these up to 4 and 4, and it'll look noticeably better. But, as I've often said, when this was 3 and 3, that's 9 pixel samples. That's 9 times everything that happens down here. So going to 4 and 4, which is 16, is almost doubling all of the work that it has to do. So your renders will literally take almost twice as long if you set this to 4 and 4. So that's what I mean by 6 and 6 is going to be 4 times as long. I think it'll be a perfectly good looking result at 3 and 3, but because I know I'm going to be away from the computer for a little while, I'm going to 4 and 4 it up. I've been so busy, that's why this lesson's taking so long to get out. But it's almost done, isn't it? I hope you see this someday. I could be just talking to no one if this lesson ever comes out. All right, enough. So let me think. What else before we finish?